there's so much data in the last 10 years that so much has changed, and so much developing that you get left behind if you don't know it. And I need to know. I mean, I've always like my mind being stimulated, and that goes hand in hand with social media. There's always something happening, so and you end up meeting similar like-minded people who you end up discussing, late into the night or even all hours of the day, just talking about, nerding out. So talking about data, talking about and seeing how it's relevant to yourself, and the mental engagement is what's key for me. These are people who actually are very similar. They enjoy the data, they enjoy discussing it, they enjoy seeing how it fits into practice and where it's going, where it's coming from. Because I think the pandemic, what it did was it was good. It also meant we were saturated by a lot of these videos, a lot of these podcasts, a lot of these online education aspects, and that's fine because we needed it at a time, and we still need it. But
so, where do you see the challenges and opportunities in your field of specialty?
So the challenges everywhere, I think, are. So right. How do you provide these services, any kind of treatments, etc., to the whole population?
What's the answer? What needs to happen to solve these issues?
Firstly, I think you need to be confident in yourself a little bit to know. You should be overconfident and think that you know it all. No, but you should be confident enough to know that if you have a bit of doubt about something, you have to either reduce that doubt by learning about it, or be aware of where your limits are and then kind of work on that. You got to understand what drives people. For me, it's always been about learning and education, and maybe the interactions a little bit, kind of just interacting with people. For me, social media has been a massive kind of influence on me and support tool for me, I would say, over the years. It's probably why I'm where I am today, is partly because of social media, and I say that honestly.
My next guest is one of the most passionate doctors I've spoken with so far about social media. So much so that while he describes his being a doctor as his day job, he talks about social media as his passion job. It's a kind of passion for learning, but also for sharing. If you've been following the show, you'll already know that doctors are using social media for learning and sharing knowledge with each other. But Dr. Amar Putana takes it to another level, creating new kinds of channels for doctors to share and collaborate. I loved hearing how important Dr. Putana feels that social media has been in his own career. And he's one of what might be a movement of doctors who want to bring fun to serious education. Here we go. I'm so excited to be here today with Dr. Amar Putana, consultant diabetologist, founder of Goggle Docs, a kind of omni-channel social media education company. Also got a role as national advisor for clinical engagement for Sanofi. I'm really excited to hear, Dr. Putana, more about your work and particularly how social media impacts that. But to kick off, well, firstly, welcome.
Thanks, Daniel. A pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be invited to talk about myself, I guess.
Thanks for being one of the brave few on our early series. Could you first of all describe your current location? What's the view from your chair?
The view from my chair is a messy room and grey skies, unfortunately, a tree and some houses. So not the best view, I would say. But again, living in kind of an urban environment, what can you say?
I think so many of the conversations that we have in the UK start off with a conversation that touches on the weather.
You have to. In the UK, you can't not, unfortunately or fortunately.
Exactly. So tell us a bit more. I gave a very brief intro there. Tell us a bit more about background to you, what you do, how long you've done it, and how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I guess the journey in a way starts way back in actually since I was a medical student, where I figured out that diabetes and endocrinology hormones, so diabetes and hormones, was kind of the path for me. And I just kind of built on that and kind of did what I can, developed a passion for kind of firstly the subject diabetes, but then actually when I became a trainee in that area and training, I realized more about the importance of education. I mean, I always liked education, but actually learning a bit more about kind of cutting edge developments in the specialty, what's going on, keeping abreast of all the key kind of areas and topics that were coming up, and kind of really, I guess, nerding out a bit, so to speak, on these areas. And it just kind of it kind of helped me attain the next level of kind of engagement with the specialty and with diabetes especially.
So there was a sort of personal passion to kind of keep learning because it was an area that was changing fast, or an area where you felt there was a lot yet to be discovered, or what was driving that?
I mean, I've always like my mind being stimulated, and that goes hand in hand with social media. There's always something happening. So I think for me, it was realizing stuff you're taught, but actually there's more stuff. You can be taught stuff historically of what's happening, but there's more stuff coming through every day. And yes, again, in the area, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and all the metabolic area, there's so much data in the last 10 years that's just,
Mm.
so much has changed, and so much developing that you left behind if you don't know it. And I need to know, so to speak. So it
Right.
was kind of it tapped an area of me that was like, yes, this is interesting me. It's keeping me excited about what's going on, but also I get to know what's happening. And I always say that in order to, I guess, to really test how well you know something, you should teach it, or you should kind of try and disseminate, and you should teach it. But also, if you know this information, why can't you disseminate it and share it to people? Because again, people might want to be interested in it, or might learn something from it. And it's that whole education kind of aspect which I've cultivated over the years. And I guess I joined social media quite late. I mean, I would always go on things like YouTube and
Mm.
Facebook and things like that, which is kind of the early generations of that. Twitter, or X as we call it, LinkedIn, and that side of things, Instagram and TikTok, but quite late to it. So I think 2017 was when I kind of joined Twitter at the time, and that was my first foray into engagement and interaction and education in social media. Um, and really, it came about because I think I had probably had something to say. I think I felt
Mm.
confident enough to kind of, I'd seen it about, and I'd kind of avoided it because I know my personality would be kind of, I need to check and look at it. So and again, with all the information flying, I would kind of constantly be interested and engaged in different things. And I knew that once I took that jump, that'd be it. So I kind of refrained a little bit, but also I felt that kind of that point, I had a few things that I wanted to highlight, some of the kind of things I was doing, some of the things I was interested in, but also some of the people, and engaging with the right people as well, nationally and beyond. It kind of felt the right time for me, so that's why I joined it.
Wow. Wow. So you had this passion to learn and you wanted to keep learning, and that kind of led to your kind of specialization. Um, but then you also wanted to make sure you wanted to make that education, that information available to others. And was that a kind of seed behind your launch of Goggle Docs?
Yeah, so Gogglebox it came about kind of, I guess it kind of naturally formed because when you go, so in order to keep abreast of all the knowledge, you do social media, but actually the data comes in conferences. So I go to a lot of conferences to learn and educate
Mm.
myself, and you end up meeting similar like-minded people who you end up discussing, late into the night, or even all hours of the day, just talking about, nerding out. So talking about data, talking about, and seeing how it's relevant to yourself. And I always like discussion. I always like, even if I don't know exactly what such I'm talking about, discussing to understand it, and also to probe and push, and to help me understand, help kind of, to help kind of the mental engagement is what's key for me.
Uh-huh.
I think is what it is, and that's what social media does for me as well. But generally, and so kind of speaking to like-minded individuals, it kind of came across that, oh, these are people who actually are very similar. They enjoy the data, they enjoy discussing it, they enjoy seeing how it fits into practice, and what, where it's going, where it's coming from. And with the pandemic coming in, we kind of missed that interaction. And so we set up Goglogs. First we used to meet during the pandemic, just kind of online, and start talking about things and just discussing it. And it was COVID at the time, and the data
Mm. Mm.
and cardiovascular disease and all that side. And then it kind of developed and said, actually, well, we come out of COVID and we go into these things. Well, why don't we, we're in a very fortunate position where we get to learn, and we get to go to some of these conferences, and we also get to, we always, my phone, my tabs are all like founder tabs of like data, unfortunately or fortunately,
Yeah.
of just kind of papers and things. So I read all these things. So why don't we kind of do something with that? And didn't know what it was at the time. Let's just do something. So we started off with podcasts, talking about conferences, and prepping, saying what our highlights of the conferences were, and what,
Mm. Mm.
beforehand and afterwards, reviewing it. We built that. That was first initially a kind of a discussion. It was just audio. Then we thought, actually, why don't we make this a video where we can show interaction and discuss things? And we made it more a video podcast, and that was on YouTube, and a few other areas. We had our Goglox
Mm.
web as well. We built Goglox as a result of that. And then it expanded from there to do social media, do X or Twitter, and do like tutorials where you have posts, and kind of constantly sending posts of just data and update and interesting things that we found interesting. And we thought, oh, if we find it interesting, maybe others might, and if they don't, okay. But we're going to do what we want, what we find interesting, not cater to
Mm.
cater to
Mm.
others, but equally, if we find it interesting, surely this, we'll see where it goes with that. We'll be true to ourselves and do what we want to do. And if that builds and people like that, then we'll carry on. If we feel naturally want to change that and move that, we will. And we're slowly building that more. So we could, because it's difficult. We're all balancing it with our day jobs and night jobs and other jobs. So this
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a passion project that we do. So we fit the time around it, and we start to, we look at, what's happening in the world of cardiometabolic care and conferences, but also otherwise other key important things, like key developments in the field like obesity or glucose monitoring, things like that, and how, and heart failure, CKD. How can we kind of build an education around it? And we want to make it different because traditional education has been there for some time, and I think in the setting of I mean, cardiologists are very good at this, but in the setting of diabetes, perhaps, and the whole cardiometabolic care, there's nobody really doing things a bit different. And that's always kind of what I wanted. That's the whole point of Go, is to do something a bit different, education with a smile, education that's
Mm-hmm.
like not typically didactic, not kind of sterile, so to speak. It's a bit more, I guess, engaging and variable, I guess. And we're still not even there yet. I mean, there's still so much further we can go. So many ideas that we do have and want to go. It's just balancing that. So we're building it and developing it, and we've done a lot of different things in different platforms. From LinkedIn to YouTube to Twitter to Instagram at some point as well. So it's just kind of different things that we're
Mm-hmm.
looking to try and build and develop, and different ways of that, not just kind of simple education, simple lectures, but also involving different members of the team, different considerations. We have the nerdy kind of geeky stuff where we talk about the data and the papers. We
Uh, uh,
talk about general topics, we talk about the practical aspects. We talk about considerations in certain settings. So it's a bit mixed is what we have, and I guess our target audience is healthcare professionals at this point, but
right. Yeah.
it's sometimes some of them are freely available, so for example, members of the public can see that.
So it's in
So
the public domain. You're thinking about other health professionals as the audience. You mentioned that you what directs you is the things you're passionate about, the things you want to put out there. What's the reaction been like? How's it been received?
so it's interesting. So I think what I'd like to say is that we got people a lot more interested in different ways of educating. I think I see this because around the pandemic time, people were starting to do, there was a lot of podcasts generally, in setting of education they were building as well. But I think we kind of did something a bit different with the conference side of things and kind of highlighting things. And then when we did the videos and the video tutorials as well, and the education that way, and made it more kind of like a conversation and more a kind of relaxed discussion about things, it changed it to make it really
Mm.
focused on kind of just, here are the facts, here are the figures, here's what you have to do, here's what this shows, and this is the thing, to make it a bit more kind of conversational about just people talking about the data, maybe not going to as much detail as we could, but enough detail to kind of discuss the salient features of a trial or some
Mm. Mm.
discussion, but then putting that practical slant to it, and the clinical slant, saying, well, what does this mean? What is this impact? And
Okay.
because
Right.
we all
Yeah.
approach things from a different way, with primary, secondary care, and different levels of data analysis and kind of, I guess, nerdiness levels in a way,
Mm.
we sometimes challenge each other or talk to each other and kind of ask questions of each other to kind of, which we don't know the answer to. We're not even prepped some of this. We just kind of talk and say, well, what about this? Or we discuss this. And it kind of provides a bit of authenticity to it. Also means that you have to know what you're talking about, and it really tests you, and it's some and have to be a bit engaging. And I think it's balance of personalities, balance of knowledge, balance of priorities that really gets that flow. I think that's what we see. And it's funny because I saw a lot more of that in conferences, a lot more of that in online educators as well, capturing a lot more of kind of the informal aspect, that kind of balance of things, and keeping it really kind of, a different way of doing things. One of the other things actually I would say is that when it was Twitter at the time, tutorials, so kind of stacked kind of tweets that are linked to each other. So you
Mm.
build
Mm.
a certain area, for example, say heart failure, and you just kind of constantly tweet about 30, 40, sometimes tweets in a row, like kind of linked to each other. So it's kind of like a thread of education. And I remember people were doing it before, where they were kind of doing it just facts and just kind of words.
Yeah.
What I did, I think it's a fair few years ago, actually. Now it sounds old, but yeah, was actually incorporate GIFs, memes, kind of add a bit of kind of cheekiness to it, add a bit of kind of fun to it,
Mm.
whilst also showing the data and linking it with references, and that link with the picture of this of the graph or of the slide that I want, or data I want to look at, to kind of incorporate it to make it a bit more fun and engaging. So kind of you use a bit of puns, you use kind
Yeah.
of comments, you throw back, you link up to other things, you kind of sometimes link to our own videos as well. So I guess it was time to change the format of how
Mm.
that serious education was delivered. And I saw basically after that, it got a lot of traction. People enjoyed it, and it changed a lot how education was delivered by a lot of other companies,
Amazing.
other people, to make it in that format as well, which I found quite interesting.
That's really interesting, isn't it? To see how, there was a time probably not that long ago where the idea of putting a fun GIF into a medical or scientific piece of information, piece of education would be, would be shocking. But actually that, it seems like you're getting more engagement from that because it's the style of communication that happens on these platforms anyway. So why not bring the science to it in the same format?
It's being true to yourself as well. I mean,
Mm.
I like the data, but actually, I also like Joe. You talk, you don't. It's sometimes it's you have to really focus when you're talking really serious, and it's good. But actually, if you're trying to listen to something when you're not talking, when you're doing, you should just learn and osmosis kind of get something, but also enjoy it. It's an experience. I think education is an experience, and that's the key thing. It's we have to move away from education. It's moving away from education just being education, so to speak, is purely like here's knowledge, take it. It's got to be more.
Brilliant.
Here's the kind of platform. Here's everything. Here's the education as a kind of as a whole amongst the kind of an entertainment or interesting kind of area. And some people might agree, disagree with me. From my perspective, I think it it's changing
Mm.
how we receive education. Because I think the pandemic, what it did was it was good. It also meant we were saturated by a lot of these a lot of these videos, a lot of these podcasts, a lot of these online um, education aspects, and that's fine because we need it at a time, and we still need it. But it's kind of how do you balance that with kind of someone's everyday life and trying to fit it in with everything, and also
Totally.
how do you engage someone to do that? You have to kind of actually get them to put a screen on and do that, unless they have to. It's kind of, well, what are you trying to achieve? And at the moment, at Gokulos, we don't, all we provide is education. We don't provide anything else with that. It's just basically here. So how do you make it so that people want to um, actually listen in, and that's through the
Right.
content, the topics you talk about, or the way you deliver it, or a mixture of both, or different things, and the audiences you deliver to. So, got to be kind of aware. And I was thinking of myself, what would I want? Do I want to
Mm.
go? Whilst I like webinars, I'm aware that my attention span with everything does fluctuate at times. So, how do you keep that attention, or how do you fixate, or how do you get that key message across initially? And that's just how you deliver it and the key things. And we're still learning.
Amazing.
I say this, but again, you could look at the videos and say, well, why? If you say that, why are you doing this? But it's all a learning process, and that's what I like about
Yeah.
it. You're developing and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. And some things work really well, some things don't. Some topics
Love it.
take off, and you get thousands of views. Some don't, and it's just, I don't know. I would have thought this would have been more interesting, but it doesn't. And things like YouTube Shorts and things like that are really, there's some
Mhm.
fascinating ways. Educate people want bite-sized chunks, don't they? Um,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and social media allows for that. Things like TikTok, things like Instagram, things like YouTube Shorts now. Not just YouTube, it's YouTube Shorts. Kind of there's a different way. And so how do you fit what you want to say in those things? So starting to develop more into that and understand it a bit more. And trying to balance the kind of seriousness with the fun, with also trying not to be too clickbaity as well. So it's kind of
Right. Trying to
trying
find
to
that balance. Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose there's something about creating that engaging content where people may engage with it. I guess kind of really diverse range of healthcare professionals actually at different ages, different stages in their career, different levels of knowledge. But by making it highly engaging, they can engage with it. And some won't even be thinking about, okay, it's not like I'm going to go and do some CPD, some professional development. I need to learn something. They've seen the tweet, they've seen the content. Now they're learning without even having to feel like I'm switching on learning mode now. It's just happening because it's part of just the way they're engaging on social media.
exactly, yeah. So that, yeah, subconscious learning, or kind of just you see
Yeah,
something, and you kind of, like, in the morning you're scrolling your screen or something, just looking, you look at it, or at night you look at it and say, okay, that's that. Okay, just maybe look for a few things, you'll see it, you'll pick something up, and then that's that, and that's the job done essentially. But
yeah,
if
great.
some people are interested more and will want to look at it in more detail, and that's kind of where you have it. And I think social media is great for that. That's kind of where, for me, social media has made the biggest impact, is the ability to kind of get so much knowledge and kind of have something to, like, store in the back of my mind. Say, again, okay, I saw that. Okay, that's something. Keep it there. If I need it in the future, I know where to kind of what I've read or what I've said, so I can find it. Or I've learned something. If I can't go to every conference in the world, and I can't go to all the specialties. So a lot of my
Mm,
cardiology friends and colleagues across the pond in America, they do a lot of good tweeting and education on social media as well. So I understand a lot about them, and what's going on in those realms, as they all kind of merge together in multi-morbidity and long-term conditions. So it
Mm.
helps build that kind of knowledge base. And also my part, I mean, they also would look to me and Goggle Docs as well to share that information from a diabetes perspective, and also otherwise, again, get everything merging. I have always interest in cardiovascular disease as well. So it's kind of cross pollination of education across multiple specialties, multiple countries, multiple members of the multidisciplinary team and healthcare professionals. So, and I've made some great contacts and great links and people who I count as friends now as a result of social media, and also people that you collaborate with and work with, and write papers with as well as a result of that. So it's an amazing networking tool as well, but an education networking tool as well, which
That's
is
brilliant.
not mentioned as much as the whole information dissemination.
I love that. And that idea that sometimes friendships can develop through just social media engagement. And then you finally meet somebody face to face at a medical conference or something. And it's like, oh, I had someone say to me, oh, you look just like your Twitter profile. I was like, well, that's good. It's because it's a photo of me.
You're not catfishing anyone, but
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, actually, Patrick from Goggle Docs,
Uh-huh.
who's VP, I met him. We engaged in social media, and then I met him at a conference, a cardiology conference, actually. Um, and so that was that we got to know aware of each other through that, and we would have like
You're right.
quite discussions and educational
Mhm.
discussions on Twitter and discuss things, and as a result of that, you know we realized we were like-minded individuals and became friends, and obviously Goggle Docs as well. So it kind of that's what I'm saying. So it's, you don't know where those interactions will lead,
Oh, it's
and
true. And I think for me, what's interesting is I was, as you know, I was at EASD last year with my colleague Jamie, and we bumped into each other there too. And Jamie and I, oh, look, there's, we were seeing what would become to us the heroes of the data that we analyze. Of, we track and analyze how health professionals are talking about health topics, so we can learn from those and develop, kind of shared knowledge. Um, and suddenly seeing all these people that were for us almost celebrities in the data of all that social media conversation. But you feel like you know someone to some extent from their social media content.
it's true and it's funny. You get that. I get a lot of people come up to me at comments and say, "Oh, I know you from Gogglebox," or "I know you from social
Mm.
media," and that side of things. And it's interesting. I mean, you don't. I didn't. I never considered it really that would be people would know me or recognize me, and I did it just because I wanted to spread the information. I want to, I want to be seen as a source of information and knowledge. But it was never about that recognition side of things, if that makes sense, and fame.
Uh,
Well,
uh,
but it's a byproduct. You get people coming at conferences, coming otherwise saying, "Oh yeah," or saying, "Oh, how's Goggle Docs?" or "How's this?" And it does take traction, and people do recognize myself as the reason why we have this interview as well, someone who does educate on social media. Um, as life gets busy, it becomes harder to do that sometimes. So you got to balance it, but
mm,
it's I've had a lot of people, a lot of people from people you wouldn't expect, like people from other, like America, a lot of the time come and recognize as well, and that's just really strange sometimes. The world's it's a big place, but it's a small place. Certainly in
that's
medical
true,
education.
isn't it?
Um,
Absolutely. The way that the Twitter networks between healthcare professionals that we see all over the world, it levels out all that sort of international geography so often and changes dimension. So I was going to ask you about this because, we've talked about, diabetology, the cardiometabolic space and so on. And you talked about comorbidities. In that whole space, where do you see the biggest challenges or opportunities? And I was going to ask you, locally, nationally, internationally, globally, I think actually it probably all overlaps because we're part of a much larger global health environment. So where do you see the challenges and opportunities in your sort of field of specialty?
so the challenges everywhere, I think, are twofold. There's economic challenges for any kind of healthcare economy, really, to deal with an aging population with multiple long-term conditions, and this is true across the world, essentially, in the setting of, well, it's in the UK, for example, a restrained NHS budget,
Mm,
which
mm,
which is trying to factor how do you offer some of these important, exciting, and development, newly developed products and medications, etc., to which will have an impact on the budget and on the upfront costs, which may save
mm.
down the line costs, but you're going to find the money now. And how and the other most important thing I would say, along with finances, is um, equity of access. So
Right.
how do you provide these services, any kind of treatments, etc., to the whole population in any country without creating inequalities. The rich and the people who are well to do or in the know will get access to them quicker than the people who may not, but they may be the ones who need it most, isn't it? June Tudor mentioned it.
Absolutely. And we're hearing, a lot about that health inequity, different, inequality of access. What do you think? What's the answer? What needs to happen to solve these issues?
Firstly, I think, and it's getting better, but you acknowledge that is an issue. That's the key thing. You have to know it's an issue to actually want to solve, and you want to, in order to want to improve something, you have to know what's wrong with it. So I think that's the key thing. It's about, and I think this is where, top down wise, and we can do things in smaller areas and localities, but top down, we need coming from the top levels to address the inequalities and understand, almost plot it on a map across the whole country, region, healthcare region, whatever that is. Say, well, these are the areas, this is where the uptake goes, this is where it's not, this is where health outcomes are poorest. And then you have to understand why that's the case, because it's not just straightforward as throw some money in to kind of improve it.
Yeah.
In that case, it'd be firefighting everywhere. You got to understand what the drivers of simple things like even healthcare access, for example, and it depends on different communities, different ethnicities, different social demographic groups. Again, so you got to understand a bit more about that. And then you've got to understand, you've got to actually focus on trying to improve that and develop things. The issue is that it takes time and it takes a focus, which not everyone in every field will have. But I'm seeing it more and more. There's a constant with anything that's coming on. There's always a mention that we should not drive inequality. We should try and reduce inequality. Yeah. So it's being talked about certainly a lot more now than it was 5 years ago or even before, or even a few years ago. And so it's acknowledged. Now, there's acknowledging and there's actually doing something about it. But at least we're acknowledging it now, I think.
Yeah. Do you see anyone or any organizations, let's take for the UK, for example, that you think are doing a great job of raising that issue or putting it on the table, at least in terms of acknowledging it?
So from my mind, I think if I'm speaking purely diabetes, for example, I do think Diabetes UK are very good. They're a charity, but also they're an organization that a lot of professional members, but they are aware, they are trying to do things to improve access to a lot of, for example, technology and diet aspects and side of things like that. So there are a lot being done there. Diabetes prevention program, again, for NHS England. They are, I would say, in the diabetes realm, partly because people like, Partha Carr, for example, you mentioned before, people that are kind of driving a lot of that for a lot of communities are well aware of the challenge and are trying to reduce that inequity. And even Claire Hambling, for example, our NHS diabetes lead, is aware of it and done a lot kind of in terms of kind of population data to look at see how you can reduce the inequality side of things. So I think in diabetes specifically, we've got a few groups doing that, and from the South Asian perspective, we've got a South Asian Health Foundation who again are talking about it from that perspective. We have a lot of other kind of communities doing it, Diabetes Africa as well, looking at it from that perspective. So I think we have a lot of engaged and vocal advocates to try and reduce that inequality. And it's going the right direction. Again, you never be happy with where you are. I don't think that's you should be. You should try and always improve for better access, and even access to technology and pumps, access to glucose monitoring. There's still some variation there, and I think that's something that needs to be worked towards. And we've got the right leaders kind of doing that, but we just need to kind of build on that more.
That's brilliant.
Hi, I'm interrupting briefly so you can be first to know about a new app launching exclusively for healthcare professionals where you can track and boost the impact that you make on social media. The app is called Creation Pinpoint for Healthcare Professionals, and you can find out more about it at creationpinpoint.com. We've just opened the waitlist, so if you'd like to track the impact you're making online and see how that compares to your healthcare professional peers, sign up at creationpinpoint.com.
Let me come back to the question of social media. You mentioned earlier that you said you got into social media late, 2017. How important has social media been then in your work over the last, let's say, 7 years?
So yeah, I mean, from my side, so again, 2017 was kind of, I'd not yet become a consultant, but I was going towards there. The reason I joined it was also to kind of interact, but also to share some of the stuff that I was doing with older adults and dementia and diabetes and that side of things. And then some of the work that I was doing is trying to engage, but also highlight, but also kind of spread awareness. Actually, what it was, and I think what it did for me was understand that they're like-minded individuals who also find these areas, what you find interesting, and you build the networks from that. So you build kind of people you might collaborate with or work on education with as well. You learn a lot more information, so things that you're working on. You realize, well, people are, because people are sharing their own things as well and sharing their own interests. You understand, okay, that's relevant to me, so I can utilize it or speak to them or contact them or find out a bit more about that. Or the data just learning, and again learning anything, just saying, well, what's happening, okay, what's going where.
Wow.
As a specialist, I want to be this person. I need to know what's happening in my specialty. I need to be well aware of what's happening left, right, and center everywhere. And social media allows for this information coming from different angles for me to process and say, well, actually, okay, this is what people are talking about. This is what's innovative and new. This is what's happening. What the experts, the people that I look up to as the key people in the specialty, or the key researchers, the key data analysts, etc. What they're saying, okay, that was relevant. Or does what I think and what I say match up to what they're saying, and does that validates kind of what I'm doing as an educator as well. If I'm saying something actually is completely different to what everyone else is saying, is that right or wrong? And it helps kind of understand that I'm on the right tracks or not, and it kind of it helped me kind of, I guess, be a bit more confident in what I was saying. Also, the interactions I would get, I would be able to, I'd like to think, somewhat hold my own against a lot of people I thought were, I still respect, but people that I thought I could no way I would not be on, I'm not on their level. But if I can have having that engagement and actually holding up and actually engaging them and actually keeping up with the conversation, that it does, it's a sense of self-validation. I agree, but it is validating. And
wow.
But that's the way, and it builds the confidence in terms of when you are talking, when you are educating, to say, well, actually, no, I've analyzed this, I've discussed this, and actually, yes, it's right, it's the right thing, or it's an aspect to consider. And I think as an educator, you need to be confident in yourself a little bit to know. You should be overconfident and think that you know it all. No, but you should be confident enough to know that if you have a bit of doubt about something, you have to either reduce that doubt by learning about it, or be aware of where your limits are, and then kind of work on that, or not, or leave that aside. And I think that's where social media really helped me kind of get the information, but also assess my thought processes in that, and kind of when I'm reviewing a paper, analyzing it, it's the right thing. And that's why sometimes I go to conferences as well, to kind of sometimes see, well, if what I'm thinking, what are the people saying, I think is that matching. So it's kind of that element which perhaps for me, I'm not sure others do that, but that for me, that's what's been quite. That's why I also go to a lot of these conferences and things, to help make sure that my mind is working.
So it's almost like there's this constant environment where you can be part of, a forum of discussion with other professionals that probably isn't, except for a conference, probably isn't available in any other kind of way day to day.
Exactly. You can have some really in-depth conversations. I mean, you can have some fun conversations as well, and the teasing and with people you've been friends and you can kind of talk with. But also there's some, like, for example, the other day I was talking to online, a statistician, a specialist person, statistician in America, a cardiologist, and I am not a strong stats person. I will understand that, and setting up a paper, I'll review it, analyze it, and I'll be able to kind of infer a lot of things and understand a lot of things. But this person is the next level. Like I bow down in awe to him, and able to have conversations with him, chat, private messaging about papers and things, and also on social media as well, and kind of getting acknowledgement as well, saying that makes sense or something. It shows that I can keep up with some people to an extent, and it's a bit validating, but also it means that you're on the right track if you can do that. And I wouldn't have had those conversations otherwise. I wouldn't. And I've learned so much from that, kind of areas that I'm not quite confident in, build on. You develop it. There's so much available in social media and so many different formats. For me, I like X or Twitter because it's like kind of links and a short kind of discussions, and you can also understand people what they're saying, but equally you can just look at the facts and that's it. YouTube takes a bit of time in a way because you have to be on it and engage it. That's why shorts are probably better. As Goggots, we do that. But equally, there are people who may want to learn more, and it's across a broad range of professionals. It could be from pharmacists, nurses to multi-specialty, senior figures to to other industry elements of people understanding a bit more about it as well. So it's quite broad, and other educational experts as well kind of also interact as well, and then conference people and people who looking people to educate at conferences. So you get kind of invites sometimes as a result of that. So it's kind of it provides an I guess it's it's kind of like a highway for information and people and learning a bit more and interacting. So it's it's really helped a lot myself personally, but also as Goggle Docs. And there's so much more, further it could go, and so much more that we could do. The problem is not to oversaturate more people glued onto it, but it's about, I guess it's about providing what people want, offering something for people. Not everyone will like it, not everyone wants it, but people who do, will they gain something from it? Perfect, and there you go. And we try and be a bit more inclusive and try and get more different people involved. We try to get colleagues and various members of the multidisciplinary team, not just keeping it with, because I'm a secondary care doctor, Amrit and Patrick are primary care, but it's providing a bit more, getting the nursing input, getting the pharmacist input, getting other specialty inputs, etc., to kind of make it a bit more rounded, a kind of proper discussion, and more than just us saying what we say, trying to get other opinions and trying to get support and trying to get knowledge.
Right.
That way. We vote from that. What do we want to know? Okay, so that's who do we need for that, and therefore we'd hope that people who watch it or listen would want to know that, or would hopefully have a more rounded kind of knowledge as a result of that. And we started delving a bit more into kind of using a bit of slides and a bit of kind of little bits of information to throw in as well to kind of keep it fresh. But again, the base is still very much an informal discussion.
Love it. Fantastic. So on a day-to-day basis, what does social media look like for you? How do you use social media? How does it build into your sort of daily routine, or is it not a routine, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so again, the different stages. So in the very beginning of when I was using social media, it was basically quite a constant, like first thing in the morning, but it all to learn. Again, it's also interesting because if you look at social media, a lot of people will go on it and post, maybe look at the first thing in the morning when they wake up before going to work. And then when they're at work, there won't be as much interaction. Some people don't, or lunch times and breaks and in between, but it's not as detailed as first thing in the morning, and maybe sometimes in the evenings as well, and sometimes weekends up and down, maybe first things in the mornings again. But most people, when they wake up, will go on their phone and kind of look at things. So I think that's the key time, between 8 and 9 usually, maybe a bit earlier, sometimes 7:30 and 9, let's say. So when I wake up, I kind of go on it a bit, look and see what's happening, what's being discussed. I'm usually tagged into a few things, so seeing kind of what the relevance is, and even kind of whether you like or share it. It's like, how much does it matter to you? And kind of you're saying, well, for me, and it comes at kind of, I guess, a time you think, well, I can like it. Do I like it? Yes, but does it matter enough? And do I think it's something that needs to be shared enough to retweet it or reshare it, repost it, or to highlight it or to comment on even? So again, not just that, also for some papers that I usually come as late at night, I'll sometimes look at a few articles sometimes, or first thing in the morning might see if I get an update, and then say, well, is it worth me posting about? Is it something that's either that's interesting, really interesting to me, or something that is relevant and is worth sharing, or something cutting edge, just kind of links to that. So that's the kind of thing you think, well, is it worth posting or not, and is it worth commenting on certain things? And then sometimes, if it depends on the frame of mind. If I'm ready to engage, I would debate and discuss a paper someone's talked about or some topic, and be like, well, what about this and that? So, and that could happen at any time. First thing in the morning is usually the higher time, and then kind of in the evening sometimes as well, just after work and started, you kind of will go on it as and when, and ad hoc, on food and TV and kids, etc. So you can balance it all out, and then late at night as well, someone's going it as well.
Yeah.
And also you got to account for also time zones as well. So some people, like for example, when you're posting or when you're talking to someone, if you're talking in America, they're 5 hours plus behind. So if you're doing first thing in the morning, they're still asleep. In the evening or midday, they wake up, or in the evening. People in India, people in further afield as well, like Hong Kong people as well. So you've got the time differences, so you can't really always have conversations. But it's kind of that. LinkedIn I sometimes look at as well. LinkedIn I find is a bit more, I guess, I need to engage with a bit more. It's more kind of, for me, it's always more a bit more job based and kind of,
okay.
It's always has been that, but it is another avenue for education. And we do put some blocks on that. And then YouTube, again, it's building up content and sending that and looking at that. I think with that side of things, and with Goggles, when we post things, I think it's more about just doing what we feel is right and comfortable, and not really much more beyond that and looking at other people, what other people are doing, etc. Just what do we want to do? So I don't really look at anything else. Say, well, what are they doing? What's doing? I just look and see what I'm seeing. I don't kind of actually search for people, and I just kind of say, well, what am I seeing on Twitter? What am I seeing on YouTube in education? What am I seeing all that? And then it just kind of factors in, but I don't do a comparison as such, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. So it seems like it fits in pretty seamlessly. Your day-to-day usage just fits in seamlessly to where you are, what's happening at any time, and it's a kind of natural part of your, like for anybody else, really. I mean,
I guess the only time I'd say is when the conference is about. So, for example, if there's conferences, I know a key trial is being presented, I'll be searching a lot more for when it comes out, also looking online to see when the paper's out. Or if I'm at a conference, or if there's a conference, yeah, kind of following the right people, make sure that I've got the updates and looking at it, and yeah, and engaging if I need to, and all kind of all highlighting it. And sometimes I find it sounds funny, but I sometimes see it as in some of these conferences, I like to, like, when there's a lot of people talking about different specialties, I like to provide the voice of the diabetologist. As in, if you're talking about, because all these kind of specialties are merging together, cardiology, renal, obesity, older adults as well, you say that. So I provide a kind of a diabetes perspective in that. So if people are saying something I just want to, again, discuss and make sure that it's the right things, and they're highlighting, there's like with certain treatments and medication, they're aware of the risks and benefits, or kind of the experiences that I've gained as a diabetologist, that some of these medications are now in a newer field. Make sure that there's confidence and awareness of that, and yeah, and you still feel kind of like, well, you still have a what's it called, not patriotism, but kind of a bias towards your own specialty, and so you just want to make sure that it's kind of represented. So that's for me with diabetes.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating to get a sense of that. So if you were, if a doctor came to you and said, look, I feel like I want to, grow my knowledge and my impact on social media, what advice would you give to them?
So the first thing I would say is, if what's the so why? What's the reasoning behind that? You got to understand what drives people. For me, it's always been about learning and education, and maybe the interactions a little bit, kind of just interacting with people in the shape of learning and building my knowledge base, and mind processing. But some people want to do it just to self-promotion, or I want to do it because I've got this and that, and that's initially why I joined, because I had something to say. But actually, I spent a bit of time just observing. So what I would say is find out the reasons why you want to do it. Be aware that social media can get when you first start, when you're going, you can get quite immersed in it, and it can take a lot of your time. Got to be aware of that. And I think that comes with time. You self-realize that actually take a step back or relax, and that can only come, there's only a point where someone develops that, where they think, actually, I need to just not be as much on it, or I need to factor in a few more things. Most people, that's happened to me as well. But also, first, just get on the platforms and just observe, see what's going on, see what follow the people that you want to follow, that you find interesting, or you kind of want to learn. There's a few people, like with especially any area in healthcare, etc., that you would they're the key people, key digital opinion leaders, as you mentioned, or people that are key people who kind of are relevant to the specialty or the area you want to just follow and see understand what they're saying, what's going on, how they post, how they kind of get interactions. Don't compare yourself to people who've got 100,000 followers, because it's never going to happen. You got to be comfortable with what is the aim of what you want to do should always be there. It should be about how many people you have following you, how many people you have clicking likes, etc. Just do what is organic to you. It's hard to say that, because you see that, and some people initially you post and you get 5 likes, someone's got 150 likes, and you're like, well, what's it? But it should, it should be about being true to why you've joined and what you want to do. And once you've got confidence, you can start asking, interacting with the people. You do that whenever you're interacting with the people, and asking questions, or showing your presence, and then posting things, and then who you tag and how you tag people depends on a lot on the interactions, but also what you want to say. So being aware of who's on Twitter or X or social media, any kind of format, and who you can link in with, this is a key thing, and who's relevant, and why you're posting about something. So if it's something you're doing in a project, what is the project in, who are the people to link in with and to talk to. It's kind of just, and that comes with time, understanding it. And it's funny, because different posts, and for myself, even now, even different things we post at Gogglebox or myself, you have different people who you think would be interested. There's some people you post because you know that they're like-minded, and there's some people who you post to because you think they should know about this, and some people you post because you want that interaction and understanding. And it varies, and it builds, because as your network builds and as the people you know interact with you build, you find different people who kind of come in and start interacting with you more. Then they ease off and someone else comes, or the people who you understand have different areas of interest, or whenever you post something, they're always the ones that interact. So you know that that's their area of interest, or that's what tickles their fancy, so to speak. So it's just kind of different things you kind of understand. So that comes with time. So I'd say, yeah, anyone starting up, just be aware of what you want to do. Don't worry too much about all the kind of posts and everything, but observe and see how it goes and start interacting, build slowly, and start to develop and find those like-minded individuals, find those like-minded people to build your network with.
That's brilliant. And where can people find you online?
Yes, so there's myself personally, which is on X as at Amarput, AMARPUT. It's the first 7 letters of my name. But and that's on X. I am on LinkedIn as well, Amarputana. And with Goggle Docs, we have our Goggle Docs, at Goggle Docs, GOGGLEDOCS, one word. We have our YouTube again, which is Goggle Docs as well. So just search on YouTube. It's not Google Docs, it's Goggle Docs. Goggle Docs UK. That's always a tricky one. But we based that on Gogglebox, which is a UK show, people observing TV, observing things and talking about it. So we were observing data, observing conferences, and so we're talking. So that's the kind of the play on words. But it does make it, because Google always trying to autocorrect. Did you mean Google Docs? No, you mean
no.
That's on YouTube. We're also on LinkedIn. We're also on Instagram. We are we have a lot of different we have a website as well, Goggle Docs, which will be linked in to our web pages. It's, again, the web page needs work on, which I'm building on that, but certainly the YouTube and X channels and LinkedIn are probably the most vocal where we are, and a lot of stuff what we post is on there. And if you like what you see, then do subscribe and follow us. We certainly have a lot more things coming your way actually, and the more we kind of get interested, the more we do, the more we kind of get confidence to try something a bit different. And I think that's the next stage, is doing something a bit different.
Love it. Love it. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. Dr. Putana, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. It's been fascinating just getting inside your head and how you're using social media and the impact it's having. All the best with the next steps. Really can't wait to see what happens next for you.
I'm sure we'll let you know. But yeah, again, thank you for involving me. Social media has been a massive kind of influence on me and support tool for me, I would say, over the years. It's probably partly why I'm where I am today, is partly because of social media, and I say that honestly.